Hello, BookTube. Well, it was bound to happen, right? The last mail haul of the week always gets here, sooner or later. Now, that's going to be true even in a week like this, which was extraordinarily heavy with mail, or at least it felt that way to me. It felt like the barrages just never stopped, which, keep in mind, I'm not complaining about at all. And it also might not be true that this is the last mail haul of the week, right? The last few weeks, there's ended up being a delivery late at night, late at night on Saturday, so that I have mail to open on Sunday. That's been fun for me and you. So provisionally, though, this looks like the last mail haul of the week, and it's not many. It's only 3 packages, but it ends in a sturdy little box. Makes me wonder what could be in there. So we'll go up in grades of cardboard from paper to cardboard to a big box and see what happens. So what is this first one? Okay, I don't know. This is not anything I requested. This is coming out in February. This is Bird Summons by Leila Aboulela. Bird Summons. What have we got here? She is a New York Times notable author and has won book prizes and she is known for her complex, lively portraits of Muslim women. And in this new novel, Bird Summons, she expertly renders the adventures of 3 friends on a haphazard road trip across the Scottish Highlands that turns into a journey of self-discovery. When Salma, Moni, and Iman, friends and active members of the local Muslim women's group, decide to take a road trip together to the Scottish Highlands, they leave behind lives often dominated by obligation, frustrated desire, and dull predictability. Each wants something more out of life, but fears the cost of taking it. Salma is successful and happily married, but tempted to risk it all when she's contacted by her first love back in Egypt. Moni gave up a career in banking to care for her disabled son without the help of her indifferent husband. And Iman, in her 20s and already on her 3rd marriage, longs for the freedom and autonomy she's never known. Late one night in their stone cabin under an orange crescent moon, Iman dreams of a hoopoe, a sacred bird from Muslim and Celtic literature, and suddenly their escape from everyday life takes on a larger meaning. Okay, that sounds really good. That sounds good. Okay, so this comes out in February. I don't have to think about it for the remainder of the year, but I'm racking up some interesting sounding fiction for the new year. So let's see what this next one is. It's one of these big white envelopes, so it could be a finished copy of something. Oh, it is a finished copy of something. What have we got here? Okay, this is also a novel. This is another novel. Okay, this is an early October book. My October shelves are not going to look like that. They're the ones right over my shoulder, the ones underneath the portrait of Samuel Adams. And they're not going to look like that for very long. If they keep taking on books the way they are, they're not going to look like that for very long. That is organized week by week. The 2 towers, the 2 gigantic towers at the beginning are the first 2 weeks. And I don't know if you can tell, but the first tower, this one here, is double stacked. So, and this is, I've also been letting books accumulate over by the couch this week and inventorying them and paging through them and sometimes getting caught up in them. So all of those have to move over there before the new week starts. So that's going to look very different. If I keep filming here, that's going to look very different. I'm filming at my desk to try to avoid these blasts of light that come from all quarters here. But anyway, what have we got here? We've got What Is Missing? A novel by Michael Frank that does not have the requisite ugly American cover. This is still a line drawing, which seems to be a fad in American covers, but this one is kind of tasteful. I kind of like it. Maybe it's just the illustration. Let's see here. This author wrote a book, a memoir called The Mighty Franks, and this is his debut novel. This novel, like his memoir, takes a piercing look at the inner workings of family life. Okay, but if it takes a piercing look at the inner workings of his family life, it's not a novel. You know, no matter what we might think, or I might think, about Karl Ove Nosgaard, there is no blurring the line. But let's see. Set in motion by one of the hardest, most heartbreaking experiences that can come at a woman as she heads into her 40s. The inability to conceive, paired with the acute longing to have a child. What is missing is an unusual love story involving a woman, a man, and his son. The novel explores the things that are missing in families, between people, and in our relationships with ourselves and the past. The power of what is absent, a baby, the truth, a dead husband, a distant brother, family perished in the Holocaust, haunts the characters and takes them through a life-altering year. Okay, and Julie Oringer, who wrote The Flight Portfolio, a novel that I very much liked this year, has a blurb here. Michael Frank's masterful and psychologically acute first novel, which leads us with equal confidence through the light-saturated streets of Florence and the hushed and polished halls of New York's Upper East Side, asks the most urgent questions about biology and nature, about filial and parental love, and about what we're willing to suffer to find out who we are. This is a wise and necessary book, one I've been recommending ardently to everyone I know. Presumably every book critic that she knows, since it's not out yet. But interesting. Okay. Okay. Well, ordinarily I would dismiss an author's pre-publication blurb unless it's my own. I don't dismiss my own. But she's like I've said on this channel many times. Authors build up an escrow account with you, a kind of escrow account. If they do work that pleases you, then you are willing to give them credit. And I found that credit extends not only to their next book, but also to their proclamations about other books. They're putting a lot on the line to do that, whether they realize it or not. And also the description here sounds interesting. So, great. All right. Well, this is a novel, but it is not a 2020 book. In fact, it's coming right up. So I can read this tonight. And then we have the box. Not a very big box, but a squat and heavy thing. So let's see. This is how, at least for now, as far as I know, this is how we're going to end our week's bombardment of mail. So let's see how we do that. Is it going to end in something glorious, or is this a box with one undersized book in it? That, oh my! Oh goodness! Oh, it ends in something glorious. Oh my! This comes out in November. This comes out in early November, and Michael Frank's book is now getting company on the Read Tonight shelf. Oh my! Oh. This is the Library of America. They are a long-running now library of uniform, beautiful books. I've got a bunch of them on the mantelpiece right over my head. Most of them look like this. This is the Elmore Leonard Western volume. Most of them look like this, and they always have. They're black dust jacket with a red, white, and blue line running through them, and black and white photo of the author on top, in this case to prove that the author is cool, he's smoking, and then down below a list of what is reprinted in the book. And this is the Westerns. This is all the stories. This is Last Stand at Sabre River. This is Valdez is Coming. A great Elmore Leonard volume. But they range all over the map. Here is Booth Tarkington. See? And you get very uniform looks, but every once in a while, here, I've got a perfect example here. Every once in a while, Library of America will innovate in their style. Like, for instance, this is Rachel Carson, Silent Spring and Other Writings. And you can see it's not the uniform black. It's a beautiful nature picture on the cover there, and that is true throughout. But Library of America also does box sets, and this is one of their upcoming box sets. This is American science fiction, 8 classic novels from the 1960s. Oh my! Oh my goodness! In a box. How wonderful. This is edited by Gary Wolfe. Let's hear about it, shall we? In 2012, Library of America and science fiction expert Gary Wolfe teamed up to present a 2-volume edition of American science fiction 9 classics of the 1950s, which I had and don't have anymore and very much want. And the first attempt to establish a kind of canon of the genre's essential texts. They note that Entertainment Weekly gave it an A+. I did not give it an A+. I thought it was an incredibly enjoyable collection and a very necessary one. This is what we don't have. We don't have an official acknowledgement of the canon of science fiction. No attempt even to set one, or to get any kind of reprint line going, which I've often complained on this channel, that people who are coming new to science fiction and fantasy and going to their local retail bookstore, looking at the science fiction and fantasy aisle, have no conception of the riches that just simply aren't there, because the genre appears to have no audience for reprints. Anyway, this is the long-awaited follow-up. A new 2-volume box set brings together 8 mind-bending novels from science fiction's most transformative decade. And you're going to want to know what those novels are, aren't you? All right, so let's see what those novels are. We have, let's see here, where the first collection offered variations on the core preoccupations of the post-war nuclear world. This new set captures science fiction in a decade of centrifugal energy, as the social revolutions of the 1960s play out in the imaginations of some of the genre's best practitioners. The first volume opens with Poul Anderson's immensely popular The High Crusade and Clifford C. Mack's Hugo Award-winning Way Station, 2 inventive novels that play with history and the conventions of the genre in madcap ways. It is anchored by Daniel Keyes' Flowers for Algernon, winner of the Nebula Award and adapted as an Academy Award-winning movie, Charlie. Told through the journal entries of Charlie Gordon, a young man with severe learning disability who is the best test subject for a surgery to improve his intelligence, it remains one of the most widely read and widely taught science fiction novels to come out of the 60s. Rounding out the volume is Roger Zelazny's Hugo Award-winning post-apocalyptic masterpiece, And Call Me Conrad, which you will have seen in the mass-market paperback 35 or 40 years ago as under the title This Immortal. Using early manuscripts and original setting copy, this authoritative Library of America edition restores the novel to a version that most closely represents Zelazny's original text and the title that he preferred. The second volume includes R.A. Lafferty's quirky and utterly original Past Master, an unjustly neglected classic that imagines Sir Thomas More transported to the year 2535, where he is made president of a future utopia. Also included is Joanna Russ's Picnic on Paradise, with its indelible feminist heroine, Alex, who is hired to protect a group of tourists on a hostile alien world. Samuel L. Delany, it would be a crime if he weren't in this book, and he is. Samuel Delany's proto-cyberpunk space opera, Nova, reprinted here for the first time in a text corrected by the author, and Jack Vance's dystopian coming-of-age thriller, Emphyrio, which is presented in restored text, removing later editorial interventions. So in other words, in the science fiction press, and oh my god, I hope in the mainstream press, this is going to spark a million interesting discussions, just like the last volume, the last box set did, including a million arguments over what should and shouldn't be in here. Even in our little corner of BookTube, we have some science fiction fans, maybe even fanatics, who are going to argue about what should be in here. I don't think any of us will argue, though, that this volume should exist, and that, you know, maybe, I mean, Gary Wolf's editorial vision is different from what mine would be, or yours would be, or Mark Richardson's would be, or any science fiction fan is going to pick 7 different books to be in here. I don't know. Out of this list, I mean, I would pick Roger Zelazny, yes, and I would pick Samuel Delany, yes, absolutely. But I don't know that I would pick Flowers for Algernon, no matter what its commercial success was. And much as I hate to say it, there are a couple of authors who aren't in here that I would include, even though I don't particularly like them, because they seem to me to be representations of the mind frame that's going through here in a way that Jack Vance, for instance, certainly could not be. Where is Harlan Ellison in here? Where is Philip K. Dick? And that's the sort of thing, the sort of discussions that I'm hoping this sparks. How fantastic, though. How incredible. Okay, well, all right, so we end the week. We end the week in the best possible way. Oh, man. Joanna Russ is in here. That is incredible. R.A. Lafferty's book, it's called here Quirky and Unjustly Neglected. I agree with that, and I would think that those two things, even if they're true, in fact, especially if they're true, would be reasons that it shouldn't be included in a series that is enshrining classics. But again, that is an editorial decision. That is the editorial vision of Gary Wolf. And, you know, as much as I might quibble one way or another with that editorial vision, I wouldn't want it to be different. I wouldn't want it to be the exact same as mine or anybody else's. So, oh boy, a couple of these things I have not read in forever, and apparently, according to this pub sheet, there are a couple of these things that I haven't read at all. That's the most interesting thing here, or at least on the surface, is that a couple of the things in here have been restored with the active participation of their still living authors, which is not a luxury that the Library of America often gets, and which means that the editions in here aren't going to exist anywhere else. Really makes me hope. Oh man, oh man, that's one volume, and that's the other. Look at that. Oh man, it really makes me hope. Sometimes with a set like this, the publisher will agree to do it. So it really makes me hope that if this catches on, if this is popular, if it gets some kind of attention, I would like it if Library of America would come out with cheap paperbacks of those restored versions of those particular books. Looks like 3 of the books in here have been editorially restored in a way that undoes some of the presumptive damage from their earlier paperbacks. It'd be nice if those were available without the ordinary science fiction fan is, an adolescent. I would assume that's still true even in 2019, who is probably not going to be able to shell out. This is $75. This box set is $75. Each of the volumes will be for sale separately, but a couple of paperbacks spawned from this box set would be very nice. I would think. I'm very happy. So there you go, BookTube. We end our book week on a very strong note. So we have What Is Missing by Michael Frank, a novel that I can get to right away. Bird Summons by Leila Aboulela, which is another novel. Sounds very interesting. It sounds like a lot of fun, but I won't be getting until the new year. And American Science Fiction, 8 classic novels from the 1960s from Library of America. How fantastic is that? Oh my. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.